Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Tax Matters. I am Pearl Namaka, and with me on the episode is Chiamaka Ohauchi.
Hello, viewers.
By virtue of Act Number 76 of 1992, the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria came into being, making tax practice a statutorily recognized profession in Nigeria. Of course, the precursor of the CITN, the Association of Tax Administrators and Tax Practitioners, later known as the Nigeria Institute of Taxation, was established way back on February 4th, 1982. The Nigeria Institute of Taxation was statutorily recognized on May 6, 1987. Mrs. Morenike Babington Ashayi tells us how it all began.
While I was with the Inland Revenue Department, actually my husband then, Prince Adebajo Babington Ashayi, he went to England and he came back with a book on taxation. He said that I know that all you want to know is taxation, and this book will help you. So he then suggested that since you are so much interested in taxation, why don't you try and form an institute like that of London, you know, the Institute of Taxation in London. And he now said, I'm going to introduce you to my partner. That was Mr. Ijiwere. And I now went to Ijiwere. Ijiwere was also very happy. And then he said, okay, you go to the Institute of Chartered Accountants. I will go to Federal Inland Revenue Department. And that is how the whole thing started. But by the time Mr. Ijiwere got to the Federal Inland Revenue Department, Federal Inland Revenue Department had decided at that time, and they have actually formed the Institute of Tax Administrators. Okay. Because we were thinking then that maybe we can have Institute of Tax Practitioners.
In private practice.
Which we started with, you know. But when he now went to Federal Inland Revenue Department and they said, oh, they also have Association of Tax Administrators. And we said, fine, we are thinking, you know, on the same line. So we should join together. And that's how the Nigerian Institute of Taxation was actually formed.
The CITN brings together tax administrators and tax practitioners under one umbrella, men and women who have access to a wealth of knowledge that helps them keep pace with the latest developments in the field of taxation, enabling them make informed decisions. The CITN comprises of 3 categories of membership: students, associates, and fellows.
A lot of people did not believe that we can even have Chartered Institute of Taxation. I remember at that time when Chief Omidiora was asking me, are we competing with ICANN? I said no.
Oh, even back then there was that kind of controversy.
Yeah, I said
because
no.
It came up again a decade ago.
Yes, I said we are not competing with ICANN. We are just like doctors who want to specialize, whether you want to go to gynecology,
surgery, gynecology, pediatrics.
We just want to specialize in taxation. We are not in competition with ICANN at all. As a matter of fact, we are moving the profession forward by making sure that chartered accountants can also specialize in this area.
In recent times, strenuous efforts have been made to sanitize the practice of the taxation profession in Nigeria, especially the prevention of unqualified persons from infiltrating the ranks of professionals. One major milestone was the decision of the Federal Inland Revenue Service to only recognize members of the CITN with the license, the seal, and the stamp of the Institute as representatives of taxpayers.
The Federal Inland Revenue Service has approved that with effect from January 2019, it is mandatory for professionals filing tax returns on behalf of their clients to affix CITN stamp and seal in all returns submitted to the service. This development is a critical step in our institute's drive towards professionalism in the tax system. We urge members who are yet to obtain their practicing licenses to do so without further delay. We are confident that in the not too distant future, this scenario will be replicated at the various revenue authorities at the state level.
Of course, that came on the heels of the decision of the institute itself to issue the license, the seal, and the stamp to qualified members.
On Thursday, the 27th of September 2018, the first set of 41 members were formally presented with the stamp, the seal, and their licenses. But before we go into that story, who is indeed a tax practitioner?
I think part of our job as we go into practice is to help our clients, our employers, for them to comply with the law of taxation. It's not to circumvent the law, but rather to help them in compliance. And the compliance function ranges from helping them to register, to filing their taxes on time, to making the appropriate payments, and making full disclosures of their earnings and expenditures. This is our role.
On the sidelines of the 20th Annual Tax Conference, Tax Matters sat down with the Registrar and Chief Executive of the Institute, Mr. Adefisayo Awubade, again on the subject, who is a tax practitioner and what does he or she do?
Sir, the membership of your institute, the CITN, cuts across both administrators, those who work with the various government agencies, and tax practitioners, those in private practice. What ethics do your members subscribe to, and how do you ensure that they toe the line?
Being a professional body, all our members subscribe to the same ethics as with other professional bodies, especially when we talk of integrity, confidentiality of information that comes into their care, and conflict of interest. That means there should be no conflict of interest in what they do and between them and their clients or those who have been holding or handling the affairs of their clients before them. And aside from this, we have a document called the Professional Rules and Practice Guidelines. All our members, once they are inducted and they become members of the Institute, are bound to read through this document and keep to everything that is stated in the document. Any deviation will make them to go and face this disciplinary tribunal, and after that they will go before the disciplinary committee, and after that they will be made to face the tribunal, which has equal status with any high court in any state in Nigeria. Our members are aware of the penalties that they will be liable to. Because of this, they will not put themselves in any position where there will be conflict of interest between them and the institute for any reason, because they know they will be disciplined.
Okay. Nigeria is generally considered to be an oil-producing country. In fact, we are a member of OPEC, oil exporting country. So, what roles do taxes or does taxation play in funding government activities if there's oil money?
Well, the issue of oil has made it impossible for us to grow over the number of years. And thank God that Nigerian government has come to the realization that if it continues to depend on oil revenue, there cannot be any meaningful growth. So that is why Nigerian government is now trying to shift its focus away from oil revenue and to make sure that money comes in through taxation. And if you look at the Federal Inland Revenue Service and the various state internal revenue services across Nigeria, their attentions are now being focused towards realizing all the potentials that are embedded in tax collection. So, and if we look at it, in any situation, in any government, in any country, there is this relationship between the government, which is called quid pro quo. The individuals or citizens will pay their taxes, and government will channel the taxes towards meaningful growth and development to make sure that businesses thrive and to make sure that the citizens do not suffer, to make sure that employments continue to be generated. So in Nigeria now, the government is now trying to change its focus to make sure that it devotes its attention to revenue collection through taxes, because we have all seen, both in Nigeria and all over the world, that revenue from oil is dwindling and it cannot continue to sustain the government, and it does not last. So the only one that can sustain the government is taxes, and that is why government is devoting its attention to. And we at the Chartered Institute of Taxation, we have always advised the government that government should only focus its attention towards taxation. And by doing this, we have advised the government over a number of times that government should review the obsolete laws. Almost all the tax laws that we have in Nigeria are obsolete. They should review them. And also, for them to improve on the tax administration in Nigeria, they should make sure that every state internal revenue service becomes autonomous. They should give them both financial and administrative autonomy. They should give them the right equipment to work with. They should always train the staff, train and retrain them, and also they should hire the best staff. That is the only way revenue generation can improve. And they should also carry out programs that will impact positively on the populace. And we also encourage them to bring a large proportion of the population, especially those in the informal sector, into the tax net. By so doing, revenue generation can really be improved across Nigeria.
How do I identify a genuine tax practitioner if I need the services of a member of the institute? What should I look out for?
Let me first of all differentiate between a member of the institute and a tax practitioner. Those who are into practice are called chartered tax practitioners, and those are the members of the institute that have obtained the practicing license of the institute. And before obtaining the practicing license of the institute, they have garnered the right experience. They have garnered the right experience. They have been they have proven to be of integrity, people that will not go away with their clients' money, people that will carry out the tax audit from top to bottom, people that will not soil their hands in any way. Before you can know a genuine tax practitioner, I will encourage you to ask for a member of the institute with the practicing license, and one who has even applied and has got approval for the renewal of the practicing license. That is to say, such a member is in good standing with the institute.
From your interaction with your members and with various government agencies, are you hopeful that we can, in the next year or two, raise up Nigeria's tax to GDP ratio, which is currently put at an abysmally low figure of 6%?
I strongly believe that. But the government has a role to play. And the role the government needs to play is to make sure, as I mentioned earlier, to put the square peg in the square hole. The issue, the present situation where government appoints just any politician to head the revenue service will not help the country, and it will not help the revenue service. So the government first of all needs to put a round square in the round hole. The government needs to provide the necessary equipment. The government needs to hire the best staff, the right staff for revenue service. Not everybody can work in the revenue service. They need to hire people with flair for figures, especially accountants, lawyers, economists. The right people needs to be hired. They need to be trained. Before they start working at all, they need to be trained. And while working, they need to continue to train them. I believe with this, the government, even if we are not going to be where we ought to be, I think 15% that the government is aiming at, we will be somewhere. And the Institute also believes that if the government begins to do things differently, things can be better.
What is the position of the Institute on the granting of incentives to so-called pioneer companies?
Thank you very much. We at the Institute believe that incentives are good to encourage businesses to be set up and to thrive. But the way incentives are given in Nigeria are not the best. Incentives are also being given in Nigeria endlessly. That is not the way to go. Rather, government should give incentives based on verifiable yardsticks. It shouldn't be given based on political consideration or based on connections with people in government. So we believe that there should be a yardstick for performance measurement before incentives are granted. And there should be a terminal date for every incentive that is given. And if the government does this, people that are also entitled to incentives but are not being given will not be agitated. So we strongly recommend to government that there should be a verifiable yardstick for granting of incentives, and that incentives should not be given endlessly. There should be a terminal date for every incentive that is given, and there should be a performance measurement on every incentive given.
Yes, performance measurement, yes, we agree with you, but let's take you up on the two other issues that you raised earlier. You spoke about timelines. We are aware that there are timelines. Like the telecoms industry, far back in 2001, they were given 3 years, then they gave them further 2 years, making 5 years. For companies income tax, they were collecting VAT and they were remitting. We also know that when this is granted, it's because there's an area that government feels that it needs, fresh hands or needs pioneers. Like the GSM was new. Are you saying that the government did not do due diligence in some of these areas?
No, what I'm saying is that it is not in all cases. There are areas where the government is doing it the right way, where government is following the rules and the law. And there are other areas where the government is not following the law at all. You also know this, but I may not want to mention specific companies. So the government needs to live above board in all its dealings, and so that the government will not be seen to be partial.
The Federal Inland Revenue Service FIRS calls on all corporate organizations operating in Nigeria to register for the purpose of payment of taxes and obtain a tax identification number TIN. All registered companies must obtain a tax identification number immediately from the nearest FIRS office. You can also collect and return tax registration forms from the Federal Inland Revenue Service Engagement and Enlightenment Tax Teams, FEET, on compliance checks exercise in your area. A company which is yet to commence business after at least 6 months of incorporation must pay a pre-operational levy of 20,000 naira in the first year and 25,000 naira for subsequent years to obtain its tax clearance certificate TCC. Note that filing and payment of VAT and withholding tax returns must be done on or before the 21st day of every month. Register for VAT. File all tax returns as and at when due. Be a responsible corporate citizen of Nigeria. It pays to pay your tax. This message is from the Federal Inland Revenue Service.
Welcome back. Now to the story of the formal presentation of the practicing licenses to members of the CITN held on Thursday, the 27th of September 2018.
The event we are here for today, ladies and gentlemen, is a very important event. You're taking another step in your professional career as far as tax profession is concerned.
The 13th president of the Institute, 41 of our members have applied for the issuance of practicing license. Many of them are here now. They have filled the conditions set by council in this circumstance. I hereby recommend that you issue to them their practice license certificates, seals, and stamps. Bandele Fatungashi, Saidi Ganiyu,
Tax Matters sought to find out from the president and registrar of the institute the essence of the occasion.
The essence of fishing practicing licenses is to enable our members to practice as tax professionals. Over the years, we have had some members of the institute as well as members of ICANN and other professional bodies practicing as tax consultants. But without the practicing license issued by the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, whoever calls himself a tax practitioner is a quack. So that was why some of our members today deemed it fit to apply for the Institute's practicing license, seals, and stamps.
Well, the essence of this certificate, of course, is to give them the right to practice taxation.
What does it mean to the Institute?
If you have our certificate, we know that you have a right to speak to clients, and you have a right to protect our interests.
Okay, what it means for the Institute is, let me just give you this analogy. Before you can be certified a medical practitioner, then you must be a member of the Nigerian Medical Association. If you are a member of ICANN, and I'm a fellow of ICANN, you must, for you to practice as a practicing accountant, there's a difference between a practicing accountant and working as an accountant. So when you have the practicing license of ICANN, for example, then you can work as a practicing accountant. You can audit the accounts of companies. You can express your opinion on it. The same thing for a tax practitioner. What it means for the Institute and for the nation is that we now have a crop of tax professionals who will express their opinion on the accounts that have been audited by chartered accountants and prepare the tax returns for companies and organizations and submit those tax returns to the revenue boards, both federal, state, and local government. And what it means is that the Institute will be able to control those who are in tax practice in Nigeria. Quackery will be eliminated, and then there will be more revenue to the country. Moreover, for the Institute, we will be able to bring into our net all those who are in tax practice. We will be able to control them. They will be able to make sure that they abide by the rules of the Institute. Because without, as at now, it has been difficult for us to regulate the profession. But if you can bring all the practitioners into the forum, it will be easy to control them. And things will be better for both the Institute and the general public and the government.
Tax Matters also spoke to some of the lucky licensees.
It means I am now licensed to render tax services to people that will need our services. It shows that by virtue of these certificates, whatever service I render to the taxpayers is no longer illegal. I now have the institute backing to render the services to whoever needs it.
I see the issuance of the certificates as a kind of professional growth, in the sense that already I'm a chartered accountant with the practicing license. And again, I come up to obtain the certificate for professional taxation also. It's an achievement.
Well, it means that I'm professionally representing the Chartered Institute of Taxation, and whatever I sign by virtue of this license should carry the integrity of the Institute.
Here is wishing the CITN and the lucky licensees great successes ahead. To our viewers, have a successful week ahead.
Remember, we are in Ember months. Drive carefully. Don't drink when you drive. Don't drive when you drink. Stay alive to pay your taxes. Bye for now.